There is a podcast that is a world unto itself.
A podcast as boundless as space and as timeless as infinity.
It is the place between light and shadow.
Science and superstition.
You've entered
The fifth dimension.
The latest series from the Consequence Podcast Network will open the door into Jordan Peele's new revival of The Twilight Zone, and it will go as far as the limits of the mind itself. Subscribe to The Fifth Dimension.
Consequence Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville at WFPK.org. Consequence of Sound and the Consequence Podcast Network. Hey, before we get started here, if you're not already a subscriber, and maybe you've been here a few times, maybe it's the first time you're checking out the series, but go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Why would you do that before you even knew what you were getting into? Well, obviously you're a fan of interviews to some degree, and we put them out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over at Consequence of Sound. You can, of course, follow along anywhere you get your favorite podcasts from, like iTunes and Apple Podcasts, but you can also subscribe at YouTube or Spotify if that's more your speed. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest, American football, talking with Mike and Nate about LP3. It's another self-titled record, and it is a beautiful record. But make no mistake, it's a different record than definitely their debut in 1999 and the reunion record that came out just a few years ago. We'll talk about finding those new directions and how they got there. We'll dig into the lyrics. The band is known for being one of the early artists of the emo genre, but now as middle-aged parents, what does that mean to their writing? And there's guests involved on this record. Hayley Williams from Paramore, Rachel Goswell from Slowdive. We'll get the stories from both of those with a hat tip to the Chicago Foundation for Women and another hat tip to the band Pure Bathing Culture, which has an indirect tie to one of the songs on this record. And of course, we'll talk a little about that famous house that graced the cover of their first two albums and why it's not on the third one. Talking about LP3 here, it's Kyle Meredith with American Football.
Hello, I'm Mike.
Hi, it's
Hello,
Nate.
Nate.
Congratulations, LP3. This is so awesome to have because, I don't know, the way the debut and I guess the reunion record, in a way, I don't know if you see it that way, but they were both first records as the way I hear them. That makes this one unique, right? I mean, did you all go into it kind of thinking of it that way? Because it seems to me it's the first chance to finally hear what this band is capable of in deeper waters.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. That's sort of how, that was sort of, I mean, I think we all agreed that was sort of the reason to do it. Like, that was the exciting part about doing it. You know, like, just being able to do the second record as a reunion thing was just sort of like unexpected and appreciated. But then it was sort of like when it was done, I think creatively, I'm not sure we tapped everything we really, or scratched everything we really wanted to scratch.
Yeah, totally. That was after getting LP2 under our belt. We kind of figured out like what works and like how we could stretch out a bit more, and it kind of helped us to imagine like, well, what would another record sound like? Well, I like these parts. I like it when it sort of stretches out and the songs breathe a lot more. And, so we got to thinking about what another one could be, and then got excited about it.
Was there a point then where you started realizing that this was a different sounding record than the first two? I mean, other than kind of going into it with those dream wish list points or whatever.
I think what makes we went in the studio with a bunch of songs that we wrote, and we sort of curated it to end up sounding different. We sort of cut some of the ones maybe that sounded too similar to ones that we'd already done, or like sort of the same tricks or the same vibes and stuff. So like once we had a bunch of songs that we were excited about that sort of had a different sound, we realized we can make a whole album that sounded different. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like, we're sitting on a bunch of songs still sort of that we never quite finished. Maybe they were, 2/3 done or half done or even closer, some of them. But it seemed like stuff we'd already done. So we were like I said, like just more excited to sort of do new stuff.
As I read, how you all started trading demos and everything. Does that also mean that, a lot of this record was written apart, like not in the same room? Was it sort of constructed like that?
Definitely. I mean, I'm trying to think of, like both the main music for like Uncomfortably Numb, Nate just did himself in his practice space, I imagine. So there was already like a verse and chorus there musically. I'm trying to think of a lot of the songs sort of started like that, where it was somebody's idea sort of that, and then the band sort of fleshed it out. But
because in a way, a lot of this does sound like, a band in a room that might have jammed out a song or anything. And I think that's what's one of the most surprising things to me is that's not exactly, I guess, how it was put together.
They definitely take a different shape once. That's why this album, we just spent so much more time that, if we had gone in the studio and like we demoed all these songs in a studio probably a couple months before we actually tracked them, just so we can like sort of hear like, well, what do these sound like if we put some overdubs on them, and then how close are we with vocals and all that. Where that would be the point where we tracked properly, like LP2, like that point in the writing process. So after doing that and like sort of like recording them, you sort of learn them intimately in a way that you don't get, just passing files back and forth. So I guess like they do become more of like, we got more comfortable with them, and then we sort of like tweaked them more and more. So, I think that helps make them, they seemed more comfortable. They seemed like you said, like we were playing them live more as a band, and that really helped sort of like, we were able to like capture that more on the album as opposed to LP2, I think.
Mike, somebody had mentioned, the record being emo as a middle-aged parent coming from the lyrics point of view. And I think one critic asked how that would connect with younger, newer fans. When you go into a project like this that's got so much history, because obviously it's, you still have Owen, if you wanted to do that. So I don't know if you look at this differently when you're writing it. Are you still writing from the heart, or do you feel a duty to represent sort of what people know in some version?
It's not a duty. I don't get paid enough to like think of it as like a duty. Like it's not like, it's not like I need to I need to keep the milk gravy train running. That's not a thing, probably a milk gravy train. But there's definitely like, if something comes out, I usually know immediately if it's going to be like Owen or American Football. But yeah, that said, it sort of all still comes out pretty naturally. I always like, like some of the lyrics are like super heavy, I guess. But it's just sort of like, that's how I think music is. That's the role music plays for me. Like, like The Cure, Disintegration is like a formative album. Like I never liked Weird Al Yankovic too much,
I love that. That's the opposite end of the spectrums right there. Weird Al or The Cure.
Well, it is. Yeah, those would be. Yeah, for me, that's like right. Like I didn't really play in the middle either. I just listened to The Cure, Disintegration over and over and over. So that's that's the role music sort of helps fill in my life. So that's what comes out of me.
That's the one they're touring right now in Australia, right? Aren't they doing Disintegration front to back?
No, I don't follow Weird Al on any of his socials.
Well played.
I do is make jokes all day, every day in real life. So maybe that's why I need an outlet musically.
I got to ask about some of the guests too. Having Rachel Goswell on here, was Slowdive. I don't know. Were you all contemporaries at the time? Were they much of an inspiration? Because putting the two of you all together, it's sort of a shoegazer dream right there.
I was a big fan. Like in junior high, I'm sure my brother just bought a CD or something, and I really, really liked it. Just for a Day. That was like, that sound was, pretty new to me. I was already into My Bloody Valentine, but this was even sort of like airier and lighter. And I don't think she knew. She might know who our band is now, but she didn't know who we were, I don't think, when we asked her.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it's kind of like a dream come true. It's like get to like be creative with people that you respect and have liked forever.
And then Nate, mentioning Uncomfortably Numb earlier, I know it's got Hayley Williams on it, but tell me about writing this song, because, it ends up being, for several reasons, one of the standout songs on the record.
That was kind of just, I set time aside whenever I can, usually twice, maybe 3 times a week, just to go to the practice space and play. And when we were like filling up a Dropbox folder with a bunch of tunes, that was just one that, at least just the music for it, that was just like one that happened one day. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's really nice. Just like a nice sounding groover. It's got all these cool syncopation parts happening. But that was it. As far as the music goes, I passed it along to the guys, and everyone seemed to like it. But yeah, then Mike, you wrote you wrote the lyrics. Well, yeah, you can talk about that. The stuff that you wrote.
Well, that's, I mean, like, somebody starts it, but it was, yeah, I mean, those syncopated guitars, we were all immediately like, that's super cool. And it's super, like, it's just like you can kind of listen to that all day. It's very pleasant. Yeah, and then I kind of came up with, like, the Pink Floyd ripoff.
From
and wrote
anywhere,
a couple verses like that.
yeah, from anywhere in particular? I mean, was there a reason you went for that one?
I think I had sort of like I think the melody kind of, it just, yeah, I don't know where that specific Uncomfortably Numb line, why that came up. It's not like I had been listening to a lot of Pink Floyd recently. It just seemed to fit sort of thematically, and yeah, the melody worked. And then, yeah, Lamos actually, so like when Hayley's introduced in the song, her vocal line is actually a trumpet melody in line that Lamos, wrote to it. So basically Nate passes on the file and we all just do our own thing to it. And then we come back together like, I have this idea. And then we sort of see which, or if all, this one sort of got pulled in every direction. We ended up using the trumpet line. We used my vocal line. I think it's super cool like that. I think it's, I guess that's where the collaboration comes in. Well, there must be a demo somewhere where maybe, Nate, you had a drum beat to it that was there's like these little details in Lamos's drum beat that I'm still trying to figure out. Like, if you just have it on sort of casually, it just sounds like a super straight beat, but he has some weird like hi-hat lifts that I can't even say I like them because they kind of drive me crazy because I can't play them. Yeah. So it's like those details sort of come out when you let other people sort of do their thing.
Yeah, totally.
Let's just say, having Hayley Williams on there then, and there was when you all did the release show, I noticed, that there was some proceeds going to Chicago Foundation for Women. Obviously, all three guests that you have on here are women. Is there a tie-in there? Is there a reason for all of that that's kind of syncing up in that way?
On the album, I just hear things sort of vocally and sonically with like women's voices all the time. So that's, it was more of like a technical thing. And then as far as the benefit, I think we just agreed upon something that sort of needed financial help that we all agreed on.
And what exactly is the Chicago Foundation for Women?
It's money for women who need help maybe in abusive relationships or just sort of, I mean, the money I don't think goes directly to them. It goes to like the facilities to help women who need assistance.
Everyone's invited to the emo pity party. That's all.
I read about the song Heir Apparent having ties to pure bathing culture. Is that right?
I mean, that one really, it's funny if you listen to the song, it's Steve Holmes' guitar part. Yeah. I don't think it's like exaggeration. I think we had seen them play a couple nights playing shows with them and, we're all fans of theirs. And I think he went home and just was like inspired by sort of that reverby, high picky kind of style, which is different sort of than what he might usually play. So no, that's like the thing, like that's Holmes' version of directly trying to rip off pure bathing culture. So, and then we kind of like consciously took it a different direction because there's no way that I can rip off Sarah's vocals. So
it's nice timing. I know they got new music out right now, don't they? So it's nice timing how that worked out.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. There's new music.
Okay, awesome.
And of course, there's always been so much attention to the artwork with this band and that house. And now the house is not there. And I don't know any other band who's had to talk about artwork as much as maybe you all have. But is there any symbolism to the sunrise then?
Well, go on, Nate.
That's just, we talked about whether to continue with the house, putting the house on the albums, and we thought this album musically sounded so different and was like so, it sounds very expansive and just kind of like it has a lot of space. So didn't quite feel right to like attach that object to it again, just because the way the two things sort of like look and feel together, didn't quite sit right.
That's beautiful artwork anyway, and I noticed when you of course listen on Spotify, they've got those little mini videos that go along with it, and it's really kind of the perfect scenes. I mean, the way it's painted, it's full compliments there.
Cool, thank you. Thanks.
I don't know. This one does. Speaking of that debut, though, and this is the official 20th anniversary. And I don't know, since you've just been celebrating the reunion, is there any reason to come back and celebrate it in any way again? Or does it just all kind of fold into itself at this point?
I think implode is the word you're looking for. I don't know. We kind of talked about, like, there's not much more we could do, I don't think. I mean, maybe. Oh, you know what? There's going to be. There might be a show or something, but it's not going to be. I don't think there'll be any proper releases or anything. So there might be some nods to it, but.
I know this album, I mean, because it is different and because it's finally in that direction, I don't know, does it feel like it opens the doors? I mean, the band can go anywhere and sort of be anything at this point now, or at least that's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's exactly it. You know what I mean? Like that's what I meant sort of earlier about like consciously sort of like picking the songs that sort of like pull people in a different way or a different direction. Yeah, we can do whatever now because now like it's not the expectations of like sounding like a bunch of 20-year-olds, you know?
Yeah.
We can do whatever we want.
Well, I'm certainly a fan of it, and I love what you all are doing. So a big congratulations on this record, and thanks for just continuing to do it. I mean, there's no, I know once a band sort of gets, whatever stamped in the past, there's always that push from fans to put those same people back into a room again. And I know you don't have to do that. But for whatever chemistry you all have together, I do think I don't know, I feel it's important anyway, and I don't mean to paint that as too strong of a paintbrush there, but I really do love what you all do so much.
It's appreciated. Thanks. That's a good way to start my day. I was going to do laundry, but I'd rather be appreciated. Thank you.
I will appreciate you all. I thank you all for doing this.
Okay, thanks, Kyle.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you around.
Thanks so much. All right, thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks to Mike and Nate. American Football, their third self-titled record, is out now. Hey, before you get out of here, as I mentioned at the beginning, you made it all the way through, so you like interviews. Thanks for that. Subscribe to the series. Again, we put new episodes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at Consequence of Sound, so keep up to date wherever you get your favorite podcasts from, like iTunes and Apple Podcasts, or over at YouTube or Spotify. After that, head over to WFPK.org, where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern, where you can also find some bonus episodes of this series. ConsequenceOfSound.net has your music and film news. You can find me at Twitter at Kyle Meredith and Facebook/Kyle Meredith. And that does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.
Go on.
Oh no, I thought I had something that would be cool to say, and then I was like, "Ooh, it disappeared."
I will now tighten all this up, and there will be no awkward pauses in between anything. So
cool. Can you erase me saying poop too?
Could you leave all mine in though? I kind of like that.
Oh sure, I can.
I was gonna make the joke, Nate, that his delay is on your natural delay. Like you guys are perfectly synced. Isn't it a joke though?